Here we're back to equilibrium. Now unplanned investment is going to be 0 at equilibrium. And I guess we can find, before I even do that, let's go to equilibrium now. Let's go to the last column here. So let's look at this column here of income and look at aggregate expenditures, and are they equal here? And the answer is no. Here we have $1,000 billion of income. We're spending $2,000. Even if we were there, we wouldn't stay there because now we're spending more than what we're producing. That's going to cause production to expand. At $2,000 billion of income, we're spending $2,800. That's also no. At $3,000 billion, we're spending $3,600. Also no. And if that were the case in reality, again, the economy would expand. If we're not at full employment already, then we couldn't. At $4,000, we're spending $4,400. That's also a no. At $5,000, we're spending $5,200. That's also a no. At $6,000, we're spending $6,000. That is a yes. That's our yes. If we're up at $8,000, we couldn't stay there. We don't have enough spending. $8,000 billion, we're spending $7,600. We have $400 billion of unsold goods. The economy's not going to stay there. It would fall. That's a no. At $7,000, we're spending $6,800. We're not spending enough to keep us there. That's a no. And at $6,000 billion, we're spending enough to keep us there. Here, our inventories are going to be accumulating because we're buying less than what's being produced. Inventories will be going up by 400. Here they're going up by 200. We're spending $200 billion less than our income. Way down at the bottom, or at the bottom of the income amount, top of the table, but the bottom income amount, we are spending $1,200 billion. We're producing nothing. All that's coming from somewhere. It has to come from inventory being depleted. Now we're spending 1,000 more than what we're producing. Inventory is negative still. Unplanned inventory is negative. It's all being depleted. We're spending 800 more than our production. Inventories are still going down. And that's why the economy would be increasing. That's why we would not stay here. Inventories are being depleted. Businesses will order more. They would tell the supply chain to send more, and that would cause the economy to expand. So if we were down here, the economy would be moving up this way. And if we're up here, we can't stay there. We don't have enough spending. Either direction, we're moving toward there. And then inventory would be negative 600 here. We're spending 400 more. People ask for an equation to determine unplanned investment. I just think about it. If there's an equation, I can't remember it. I always get it wrong. But I just understand what's happening. At 5,000 income, we're spending 5,200 more. If we're spending more than what we're producing, inventory is going down. If we're spending less than what we're producing, inventory is going up. And here we're spending exactly what we're producing. There is no unplanned inventory. And that's another condition to figure out equilibrium. So on the back side, we did our aggregate expenditure equation. I'll put it up here again. We combine the two constants, the $1,000 billion from investment and the 200 autonomous consumption from consumption. And then we have the only part that goes up with income, the induced consumption part. That's a Y. We can also put on the graph, this is our 45-degree line, and now we're looking at aggregate expenditures, and so this 45-degree line is not where consumption equals income, it's now where aggregate expenditures equals income. And that is the definition of equilibrium, so you can also call this 45-degree line our equilibrium line. Wherever aggregate expenditure crosses that line, we have equilibrium. And so it's going to start at 1,200, right about there. We determine equilibrium was at 6,000 using the table. And then at $8,000 billion, we had aggregate expenditure at 7,600. So 7,600 is about there. So my aggregate expenditure line is going to go through these 3 points. And see how well I did that, at least in theory. And so aggregate expenditures is going to start up here somewhere on a positive number, and that would be our autonomous spending, our investment in autonomous consumption. When it's here, we're going to be spending more than our income. In this all here, we're going to have negative unplanned inventories. Over here, where our aggregate expenditure line is below the equilibrium line, we now have inventories being accumulated. We're spending less than income. And so if we were over here at 8,000, we would move this way. If we were over here somewhere at, say, 4,000, we're spending more than 4,000, we'll move this way. And that also would be equilibrium there. We can also solve using algebra. Again, with models, we have different methods of using the models and finding solutions. So I did this on the other page. This is our aggregate expenditure, C plus I. This is consumption here. That is investment. I put them together. This is the consumption component here. Add that to investment, and that's our aggregate expenditure equation. And then equilibrium equation is right here. And so I substituted this into aggregate expenditures, and now it looks like this. And now we can solve for y. You've taken algebra for a long time now. Now we can actually use it for a problem. And so we have 1,200 plus 0.8y on the left side. We have y on the right side. What you want to do is get your y's together, right? And so I want to take them off on the left side here. So we subtract 0.8y on both sides. It's gone. I got to subtract it over here. Well, this is 80% of a y. It's like 80 cents. This is a whole y, 1 y, that's like $1. $1 minus 80 cents leaves us with 20 cents, right? And that'd be 0.2 y. Still got 1,200 over here. And now what do we do? Well, we got to get y by itself, and therefore we want to divide both sides by 0.2. Now we have our 1y again. I got to divide this by 0.2. And if you do that, of course I can find my calculator. There it is. 1,200 divided by 0.2 gives us 6,000. And these are actually billions of dollars. And once I solve for equilibrium y, I like to put a little e there, maybe a lowercase e or a capital E. And this tells me equilibrium is at $6,000 billion. We can also solve for equilibrium, as your book points out, using savings and investment. Now you have to be careful. This only works if we only have investment and no government in our model. If we have government in our economic model here, then this will not work. Then we have to bring in government and taxes as well. So just to be careful, this only works if we have only two types of spending, consumption and investment. So up here we have two statements. One's always true. Income is equal to your consumption and savings. Without taxes, right, there's only two things to do with your money, either spend it or save it. And so right now, we have no difference between our total income and our disposable income because we have no taxes. Equilibrium is defined as y is equal to c plus I, so we can substitute this, c plus s, savings and consumption, into y. Right there. And now we can subtract c on both sides, and what do we got? C is equal to investment. I forgot to mention, this works because savings is considered a leakage in the system. That's money leaking out, money not being spent. And investment is an ejection in the system. That's new money coming in. And that was the problem I talked about in chapter 1 when I talked about lectures and the circular flow diagram. I talked about the fact that savings was a problem in the system. We needed to get it back into the economy. And so if you go back to the table, you can see at $6,000 of income, we have $1,000 of savings. So if we had no investment, we couldn't stay there. We don't have enough spending. We have $5,000 consumption, $6,000 production income. We don't have enough spending. So this savings is a leakage here, but we can get to a position where we can stay there if someone else spends that money. So we save it, and then it goes to a bank, and then the bank lends it out to business right there. So here, savings is equal to investment means we got all that savings back into the economy, which means now our total spending is now enough to keep us at $6,000 billion. And we'll stop there.